It is the big event. This is our main event that we're really showing this week. And I just want to bring everyone
Yep.
back to a nice little December game that we can see. And this is Kansas City, or Denver at Kansas City in the snow. And I believe that's Tyreek Hill having fun. So maybe,
Yeah.
hopefully, he didn't have a great game that day, but he is having fun.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
he did actually.
Tyreek Hill, I thought his longest catch was 20 yards.
So he had
Well,
two
he went
touchdowns.
5 for 67, but he had 2 TDs.
So
Bailed out by the touchdowns.
right,
Yeah.
I guess when I think of Tyreek Hill, I think of a streaker getting the big plays. But you're right. I mean, fantasy wise, great game.
Well,
Go ahead,
yeah.
Sean. No, go ahead, Sean.
Colin, to your point, his upside on Monday when we saw him on Monday in inclement weather, they couldn't get the ball downfield to him, so he did not have such a good game. But in this game last year in Denver, he scored 2 touchdowns. But for this week, again, like Colin said, this is our main event. And I mentioned in the weather blog on our website that typically October is a transitional month. This is when weather starts to rear its ugly head. And we're starting to see that now where we have a continental polar air mass. So what I was saying is that this time of year, we typically see our air masses change. And we have a cold air mass in place for our Denver game. This game is on Sunday at 4:25. Not only are we expecting snow for this, but it's also going to be cold. We're talking in the teens. We're talking 15 to 20 degrees. And that could even get a little bit lower towards the end of the game. Now, what we have here is an area of low pressure that's over the southern Rockies. This is basically a merging of 2 areas of low pressure. And we have this large trough that's digging into the northern plains. And with that, a front is going to be setting up. And we're going to have a cold front set up. And along that front, we're going to have some precipitation that's going to move into the area throughout the day on Sunday. Now, we're expecting amounts to be around 2 to 6 inches or isolated heavier amounts at higher elevations. But the big news here is that we are expecting snow. It's going to be cold. And winds can be 10 to 15 miles an hour, potentially 20-mile-an-hour gusts. So it's almost like we have all 3 weather or types of weather that we usually try to identify all in one event.
And I brought the wind
so this
map
could be a
up.
potentially large event.
And I brought the wind map up showing that the wind that you're talking about with at the time of the game.
Yeah. It's going to be small because you have the mountain influences, so there's going to be a lot of what we call downsloping wind off the mountains as well. So there could be some areas that are a little bit windier. But regardless, what we're expecting is a definitely impactful game. And with the Kansas City Chiefs playing, people have fantasy players playing in those games. So we have a lot of people to talk about.
I mean, let's start with the man of the year, I think, in my mind, is tight ends. I mean, he's a beast, right? So we're going to bring you back to our module, and we're gonna talk about Kelsey, right? He's the big one with the type of game that could happen here.
Yep. So the beauty about this, what Colin's doing right now, is you can actually filter out players. Yeah, you can look at all positionals together, and then you can actually change and fine-tune these statistics to look at how an individual player can perform in certain weather conditions.
I don't know, a half point is our league. I'll do full point PPR.
Yeah, I'll see over full point PPR.
Yeah, there we go. So this is, look at Travis Kelsey. Weather events. This is cool. You can see he is above his mean and that he may see some upside here in this weather. So, Sean.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Or Mike, Mike, why don't you take this one and explain what we're seeing here for the viewers?
Oh, yeah. So, like you can see on this chart here that many of the green bars are to the right of the peak of the orange, meaning Kelsey outperforms his typical averages here for his career, and he can actually pretty much boom here in some of these weather games where you see some points. He had a 25-point game and a 34-point game. You know, if you look back to last year, and I believe this is at the bottom of the chart here, he actually scored. He had 142 yards, and his total fantasy points for the day was 25.2 points. So in these weather-driven games, Kelsey performs, and you have to wonder, guys. Is it an Andy Reid strategy? Is he going to the big man, or is it a Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, I think it's a Patrick Mahomes thing. I think it's a safety net.
I mean, 3 years prior to that, though, 160 yards, 1 touchdown, 33 points. I mean, he does well in weather events like this.
He does. I mean, we saw. I mean, at any time that Patrick Mahomes threw the ball on Monday, we saw him going to Travis Kelce. Now the worry was he wasn't able to get downfield. We saw him slipping and sliding, falling to make some catches. It was hard to throw accurate passes, but he trusts him in inclement weather. That's the message that I get here. So, I mean, I think Travis Kelce has some tremendous upside. I think he's at least going to get the volume and the opportunity, especially in the red zone. So I wouldn't be surprised to see over 100 yards and a TD for Kelce in this game.
I think his
what's interesting?
The floor is his average, I would say. I think he's going to outperform his average.
So what's interesting here is, I've been doing a lot of DFS podcast listening to what the industry is saying. And a lot of folks this week are pretty much punting the tight end category, which is fine. You could do this for the strategy and try to, optimize somewhere else. But I think one of the reasons why they're punting the tight end category is because, they don't want to buy up on tight ends. They don't want to spend a lot of money on Kittle or Kelce. And Kittle's got a tough matchup. But Kelce, I think the snow is starting to spook some of the analysts there. And, from these diagnostics here, it suggests that it's okay to pay up for Kelce this week and try to find how to mix and match your DFS lineup, other positions.
I don't have it on my notes, Mike. Do you know what on DraftKings Kelce's price is right now?
I will check that up.
I have it. I can look at that.
Not to put anyone on the spot, but I think it'd be interesting. I still feel he's in the 7,000s.
I don't think he's the second price. I think
6,300. 6,300.
And what's the top tight end going for? Who is it? Higgins, probably.
So it's Kittle at 65.
Kittle, sorry, Higbee. I meant not Higgins. At 65. Okay, so he's still up there.
Yeah, it's easy to pricey play, but I mean, right. The one thing you have to be sure is try not to be spooked out by the weather here, because the statistics show he performs well.
So who should we?
And the other thing is that Denver ranks 20th in passing defense. So people are able to pass on them, especially if you're in a Pat Mahomes-driven offense. Last time Pat Mahomes played in the snow against Denver, December 15th last year, he went for 343, 2 TDs, and an interception. So what's proven is that he is a good player. He can play when he needs to in inclement weather, especially snowy weather like he did last year. And I think Kelce will be the beneficiary in this game. Mike, I do have a question regarding the running game. So the other question is, well, what about running backs here? And typically what we've seen with running backs is we've seen an uptick. So the statistical analysis I've done in games that are cold, in which we had precipitation, we saw a 40% increase in receiving yards, a 30% increase in the chances of a TD. And their attempts were a little bit up. So, Mike, how are you feeling this week? Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 26 carries against Buffalo. We have Le'Veon Bell getting into the mix this week. Is Andy Reid going to be running the ball again potentially? And what's that distribution going to look like? Because people need to make this decision on if they're starting and who they're starting.
Yeah, so that's a great point. You think if you go back to last year, right? We didn't see a huge game out of the running backs in that Kansas City-Denver game last year. But you have to also remember their star running back was hurt, the Chiefs, because they were relying on a committee of running backs, where none of those guys last year just didn't really perform.
Was there running back hurt, or was the running back kicked off the team?
No, he was hurt. He was Damian Williams, and he was hurt last year when this happened. So they had to go to guys like Darrell Williams and Shady McCoy, who was just washed up. So they just didn't have a real running back to leverage. So this is a tricky question, Sean. Obviously, we have Le'Veon Bell coming to town. I don't know if he's going to get a big amount of work here. So I think it's still safe to play Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I'm a little hesitant, especially in DFS formats. I think there's better players at values compared to CEH with the unknown of Bell.
Yeah, I think there's a huge unknown there. I do think there's an upside for TD. I do see the Kansas City Chiefs driving the ball, getting in the red zone. And potentially Le'Veon Bell getting a few carries inside the 10 and maybe doing something with them. But it's just nobody knows what this is going to look like, right? Everybody's guessing on the distribution of carries, and it's anyone's guess at this point. And with the weather, I do expect there to maybe be a few more receiving opportunities, maybe a few more attempts, but who will get them, that's to be determined.
Yeah, on the other side of the ball, we talk about the running backs for the Denver Broncos, right? We have Melvin Gordon coming back.
Who won't be?
Melvin Gordon comes back. He's my running back in our fantasy league.
Yeah.
I got him in another league. I'm excited to have him back.
Well, I mean, it's good to have him back, but you also saw Lindsey perform quite well. So you might expect there's going to be a 50-50 split there in the work, which limits the upside on both running backs. In a game where there's going to be snow, we saw last year the Denver Broncos offense struggle extremely. You just have to be worried about playing these guys, especially in DFS formats. Honestly, guys, the defense that I picked this week for DFS is the Kansas City Chiefs, because I don't think that I just don't see Denver scoring a lot of points in this one.
Well,
yeah, I would probably agree. I think they're going to get the attempts potential. I just don't know how much they're going to do with them. And so I'm in agreement with you there, Mike. What about quarterbacks? What about Patrick Mahomes? Mike, how are you feeling about Mahomes research? He has not performed in really cold games, so below 20 degrees. But he also played in a snowy game last year and went 340 for two TDs. So are you paying up for him this week in DFS?
So I do want to say, and this is something that we've seen, right, in time out, the good offenses still produce in snowy conditions, right? We saw it with Aaron Rodgers last year against the Giants. We saw it Mahomes last year against Denver Broncos. Even though there was some capping in the upside, he didn't get 6 touchdowns like his best game ever, but he still can be a respectable quarterback. He can still throw over 300 yards and a pair of touchdowns. While in DFS formats, I like better guys than Patrick Mahomes. If you're having Patrick Mahomes in your starting lineup, especially if you're doing like a reformat or a redraft league, you still feel pretty confident.
I'll say Vegas doesn't like Patrick Mahomes. The over/under is 48.5.
So what is Kansas City favored by?
Oh, I just had that. Sorry.
I think I put it in my DFS blog today, to be honest. So it's a 12-point favorite for Kansas City.
It's a 12-point favorite, but with an over/under.
Hence the defensive play.
Right. So I mean, it's the over/under that we saw in the Buffalo Bills game. I mean, that they got 43 points there in the rain. Mahomes, what was Mahomes' stats yesterday? I got him right or last week. 225 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean,
yeah,
he's got a better, friendlier matchup when it comes to the defense this week.
Yeah, but
yeah, he does. I don't think 250 plus with 2 TDs is out of the question. Potentially with some rushing yards in there as well. I mean, he's going to give you a safe floor. I don't see him bombing this game at all. I think, and obviously redraft you're playing him.
I'm just saying that I don't think he's going to have the stellar Patrick Mahomes games that you sometimes hope for.
Right, exactly, and that's why you could find better options on DFS.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you guys. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because he is ranked number 3 in DFS. He is $7,400. So maybe you look elsewhere.
I don't think you'll ever see him less than the top 3 quarterbacks ever, no matter what's going on. Even if he's playing with an arm behind his back.